In 2021, it was announced that Rachel Zegler was going to be Snow White in the live action remake of Disney, Snow White, 1937 film. I grew up on it. You're welcome. I'm wishing for the one. Like, we know, we all love Snow White, okay? Yeah. It was creepy. It was a great film, all right? There's a bunch of, I don't even want to say controversies, but there's different things that happened in the lead up to this. But the biggest, and the one we're going to talk about today, is that Rachel Zegler is half Colombian, and she was immediately attacked for being cast as Snow White. Now, I need to explain something to you as a half Chinese person, as a young girl who never who was not born blonde and became a brunette. No, I was born a brunette. I've had jet black hair since I was little. And looking at Snow White, and Rachel says this in one of her interviews with Variety, Snow White was the one princess where you're like, yeah. When you're young, and even when you're older, you don't associate the whiteness with the fact that she's Caucasian, right? Listen, you want to talk about people who have got white skin and dark hair? Asians, my friend, East Asians, the Chinese. Sorry. We love a light skin. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole point, right? Because it shows you're out of the sun. You know, you're in your castle. Not your castle, your pagodes, as we would say. I'm pretty sure that's the official nomenclature. No, I will not be doing that voice. The point is that I totally saw myself in Snow White. I was like, she's so cute. I'm obviously adorable. No, she's got short jet black hair, super saw myself in her. And I think a lot of young girls of color were like, yeah, that's me. You know, Cinderella, I don't really look like that, but it didn't matter. You love them anyway. Ariel, all that. But you see Snow White and you're like, that's me. It doesn't matter that she's fair. Everybody got fair people. And let me just, sorry, spoiler for the racists, there are white Latinos. That's the thing about the continent of America. It actually was indigenous. All people, brown, very brown. Then colonized by the Spanish, the Portuguese, right? The Americans up here, the English up here. Kill, genocide. Miscegenation, of course, intermarriage. The Spaniards much preferred that. And so there was importation of slaves from Africa and slave people. There was importation of people from South Asia, right? So you've got you got the West Indies also. It is an amalgamation. It is a story of colonialism. And yes, there are white people. Okay, Spaniards are white. There's white people. That's just because when someone says like Latino doesn't mean they cannot also be white. Now, I don't know how Rachel identifies herself. Once you're in this country and you say you're Colombian, you're definitely a person of color. But you know what I'm saying? Like, let's not pretend we're stupid about like the many different shades of Latino. Okay. So that's number one. Now, the box office numbers are trash, people. Okay. Snow White is absolutely failing. And the question is, who is to blame? Variety magazine has this very terrible, actually, really, really awful article that I want to read y'all about inside Disney's Snow White fiasco, death threats, beefed up security, and a social media guru for Rachel Zegler. Why? What happened? And it's part and parcel of a long thing that happened with Rachel Zegler. And I'm like, this is like the wind up is very, very slow. I understand. I understand, guys. Like, what the? It's important to note that Rachel Zegler has, when this controversy initially happened, the actual point of all this is that white nationalists were like, you're not white. You can't be Snow White because you're not white. That's the whole point. If you search on YouTube, you search anywhere, people think that Rachel Zegler is not white enough to be Snow White. That is what has led us to this moment, okay? There's Palestine stuff that comes later. This article was also from Variety, and this came out October 2nd of 2024, so last year. Rachel Zegler on Reinventing Snow White and Juliet and facing off against toxic Disney fans. So Rachel Zegler played Juliet on Broadway and Romeo and Juliet. She can sing. She also played Maria from West Side Story, which I really enjoyed. West Side Story, the remake, the Spielberg one. It's very good. She crushed it. I didn't really believe Homeboy. Like, I didn't really love her counterpart, but I actually think they're dating. So I don't know what. The point is thus. This is an interview that that Variety did with her. And she basically talks about the amount of hate that she has gotten. Since being plucked from her life as a high schooler in Hackensack, New Jersey, and handpicked by Steven Spielberg to play Maria in his 2021 remake of West Side Story, Ziegler has become one of the decade's shiniest new stars. She appeared in comic book adventures and headlined a major franchise, Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I haven't seen that one. Now Ziegler is about to become an icon for kids the world over, playing the title role in the Disney live-action Snow White, which opens in theaters March 2025. In some ways, playing the fairest of them all marks the end of an era for Ziegler, while heading to Broadway marks the beginning of a new one. I think I need to start thinking about a pivot. I feel capable of being picky about the next thing. But Ziegler's meteoric rise has come with strings attached. For as long as she's been famous, she's been the subject of ruthless and relentless criticism. It began innocently enough with petty jokes about her theater kid energy, but as Ziegler's fame increased, the complaints about her grew more sinister. When she playfully posted about not being invited to the 2022 Oscars despite West Side Story earning 7 nominations, she was called ungrateful and entitled. Okay, I am clearly not a big pop culture person, but the fact that you were a star, the lead in an Oscar film that got 7 noms and you didn't get an invite, I mean, that must have got lost in the mail or something. Like, that's wild, right? Like, they invite, costume designers who were, costume designers, assistants who were nominated. Like, if documentary filmmakers, whom I love, I'm like, you gotta, I realize it was her breakout role, but you got to invite her to the Oscars. So that was already like a little weird, a little sus, in my opinion. But of course, she was called ungrateful and entitled when she playfully posted about it. For admitting she took the role in Shazam sequel because she needed money, she was seen as tacky and in need of media training. Hello, Barbie monologue. It's all coming. You can't look like you want money. You have to pretend like you already have it. Every time she speaks up about racism and sexism in the entertainment industry, she is slammed as just a, quote, another DEI hire. Guys, this was a year ago before our DEI discussion blew up. Coasting on her identity rather than her talent. This bitch can sing, y'all. You need to know that. She's trying to have a sense of humor about the vitriol. Someone should kill you, an user wrote in August. Fun fact, I will be dying 8 times a week on Broadway this fall, she replied, telling the hater to buy a ticket and then tagging the FBI. Oh boy. Being famous isn't for the faint of heart, Ziegler said with a sigh. When Ziegler comes downstairs for what she's wearing, I don't care, but look at how hot she is. I'm sorry. She looks super fly here. Like, this outfit. God damn. God damn, she looked good. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's just adorable. I just really like that whole outfit situation. Okay, so here she goes. For now, Ziegler in her princess era. Her appointment as the apple-eating stepdaughter of the evil queen drew instant ire online, with many promising to boycott the film due to the woke casting. To them, the actress's Colombian heritage disqualified her from playing the princess from Disney's 1937 musical fantasy, described as having hair as black as ebony and skin as white as snow. Never mind the fact that the character Bianca Neves, that's, by the way, Bianca Neves or Blanca Neves, Bianca Neve in Italian, Blanca Nieves in Spanish, is just as popular in Spanish-speaking countries as she is in the U.S. She was my mom's favorite princess, Zegler said. When she was growing up, there weren't a lot of dark-haired princesses, and this was one she could relate to. So she basically talks about the fact that it's like, it's okay that she is half Colombian. She says, you're doing this for the little girl that you once were, who grew up without that representation of her Colombian culture. You're showing that anything is possible for someone who looks like her. And that's the most important job in the world. Overnight, online trolls took shots at Zegler's disdain for the animated classic because she began saying in red carpet interviews in 2022 that her version of the iconic princess wouldn't spend days pining over a man. She called the aspects of the original story weird and said that the 1937 prince literally stalked Snow White. That is a perfectly normal thing for a 26-year-old to say. That's a perfectly normal thing for a 40-year-old to say. Like, then this is a 1937. It was one of the first Disney movies, okay? It's like one step out is Sleeping Beauty, but she does, fall into a sleep. Everyone's got to fall into a sleep, and then a prince's kiss wakes them up. That's the only thing that can break the spell. It's always the prince. But like the fact that they made such a big deal about her, saying that the original version was a little weird, if anything, that should make people more interested in seeing this new film. Sadly, again, the numbers are tanking. So the reason that I bring this up is because it gives you good backstory of how we got here. She said, in all honesty, she was sad that her comments were interpreted that way. It may be sad that it was taken in such a way because I believe women can do anything, but I also believe they can do everything. What she meant to convey was that Snow White wants romance, but has other goals too. That's very nice. Look, she's been super outspoken, y'all. She has been very, very, very outspoken on all kinds of things. She was active during the SAG-AFTRA strike. She spoke out against AI being used to replace actors. And then, drum roll. Just one day after appearing at the D23 in August, where Zegler teed up the first footage from Snow White for a crowd of adoring fans, she posted a note of gratitude on X, but it was the last line of her post that drew the most attention. Quote, and always remember, free Palestine. Dun, dun, dun. Uh-oh. Person of color in the public eye says to free Palestine. That is going to be a no-no. That's going to be a no-no from everybody. And indeed, that's exactly what happened. And so it is crazy that then, Variety, who openly talks about how terrible she felt, how much she's been trolled by racists online, that they then did this next article that I'm going to read you. But first, before that, she says, to this interviewer, she says, I cannot watch children die. I don't think that it should be a hot take. She knows it's not that simple, but she tries to tune out all the noise that blares around her every time she speaks out. Quote, I'm only responsible for what I feel, and then I'm also responsible for how I act upon it. We're nearing 1 year since the horrendous attacks on Israel in October 7th, but I've been following the conflict for so many years. Like so many people, I'm heartbroken by the loss of life that we're seeing with these insane death tolls coming out of both regions. Look at her doing the both sides stuff. Look at her. Look at her tiptoeing around it. She's being very sensitive. Despite the blowback, Zegler wants to continue to use her platform to advocate for the Palestinian people. Quote, I don't have the answers, she said. I don't think any celebrity making a political statement has the answers, but we have the platform to share a donation link to make sure that these people get the money, the care, and the aid that they need, and that people in power aren't giving them. If that means it can fall upon us to be in power in a way that is helpful, I'm happy to do it. This was when there were no signs of Joe Biden stopping this, right? Is he going to do it? Is he going to, stop the aid flowing, stop the weapons flowing? Nah. Nope. No adults in the room. And this was right before the election, too. And then, again, this is the article that comes out just 2 days ago, calling it a Snow White fiasco, inside the fiasco. And effectively, this article blames Zegler for everything that went down. There were other controversies. There was like a fire on set. I don't know why that's so crazy. But it also brings in, and this is the most important thing, not only did she speak up for Palestine, but her co-star was Gal Gadot. Put a pin in that. We'll get back to it. After she posted that, right? After she posted, and as always, free Palestine. The addendum amassed 8.8 million views, nearly 4 times the number for the initial post, quickly made the rounds with many inside the studio expressing shock that the Snow White star would commingle the promotion of its $270 million tentpole with any kind of political statement. A Disney executive raised the studio's concerns with the Zegler's team, while the film's producer Mark Platt flew to New York to speak directly with her, but the actress whose relationship with the studio began to unravel in 2022 during a contentious West Side Story award season campaign and continued as she trashed the beloved original. She did not trash it. Stood her ground, and the post remained. This queen refused to delete the Free Palestine post. Behind the scenes, death threats towards Ziegler's co-star Gal Gadot. Okay, sure. Well, there's lots of death threats. How about that? There's lots of death threats. Who is Israeli, spiked, and Disney had to pay for additional security for the mother of four. What about the security for Rachel Zegler? What about the security right now of people who think she is too brown to play Snow White? Was there security? One insider said she didn't understand the repercussions of her actions as far as what it meant for the film, for Gal, for anyone. And honestly, guys, as you speak out about Palestine, I just want you to think about Gal Gadot and Disney. Like, did you really ever think about how your actions reflected on this movie franchise that needed to do well, but didn't really need to do well because it's like $1 billion company? Like, did you? And also, like, I feel like if you just look at everything that's happened in the last, what are we in, like 24 months, or not 24 months, excuse me, 18 months of this genocide. Like, don't you feel like the real victims in all this are that Gal Gadot had to get extra security around her Brentwood home in her Hollywood mountain? Like, I feel like the murder of, I don't know, 14,000 children is like not as important. Like, yeah, victims, but like not really victims. 3 months later, this just got released, guys. This article. 3 months later, following the presidential election, Ziegler posted Donald Trump and, quote, "May Trump supporters never know peace" on Instagram. Disney had had enough, given that the star was signaling to half the potential audience of an already troubled film plagued by costly reshoots to stay home. Platt made the case again to Zegler after a back and forth. She began working with a social media guru paid for by Disney to vet any posts before the film's March 21 bow. Disney declined to comment. Ziegler did not respond to a request for comment. Now the film's dismal opening weekend, $87 million worldwide, is in the rearview mirror. Burbank brass are evaluating what went wrong. Yeah, to put Snow White's global box office haul into perspective, it's about $34 million less than blah, blah, blah. I don't care. You know what went wrong? You freaked out about something that wasn't actually a problem, and you didn't support your star, who, by the way, apparently was the star. I read a lot of reviews of Snow White, okay? People said it was only good because of Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler can sing. Rachel Zegler apparently was like bubbly and charismatic and interesting and brought a lot of life to her role. On the other hand, Gal Gadot,
I'm not exaggerating when I
brought exactly what Gal Gadot always brings. A little bit about dead-eyed IDF energy.
I say that Gal Gadot puts on one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life. Now, I'm fresh out of Snow White, and like that Gal Gadot performance, that is not something you just watch. That is something that after it's over, you say that you survived. You have to dig deep. The entire time she was on screen, I was just thinking about Alfred's words. Endure, Master White. Take it. Oh my God, that's not real. Oh my God, that's not real. The whole time I felt like the Speed meme. I was getting secondhand embarrassment. Any line delivery, I was just like, when it comes to monotone and flat line delivery as the evil queen, Gal Gadot was putting up 2018 LeBron numbers. Anytime she had to lash out or like show emotion, like at this point, damn, give me the apple. Give me the poison apple, because I'm going to fall to an eternal sleep regardless just watching her on screen. Talking something about who's the fairest of them all, the fairest. You know what's not fair? Me watching Rachel Zegler putting a standout performance as Snow White, and you're just doing whatever. You're just trying. Like, seriously, this movie is going to get slandered for a multitude of reasons. The controversy surrounding it being a Disney remake, but Rachel Zegler is innocent. She brightens and electrifies every scene with her performance. I mean, her vocals, her just on-stage presence. I mean, obviously it's carrying over from Broadway. She's used to this kind of stuff, but she's a star. But this thing really does suffer from a lot of the other remakes' problems, in the fact that it's not as visually interesting as the animated feature, and it's just visually bland and uninspired. I do think this is a visual step up from the Little Mermaid remake a couple of years ago, but is that really saying much? It does manage to bring some of the iconic moments from the original animated movie into...
Okay, so he's giving, I mean, look, I don't think I've seen a single Disney remake, the live action remake. I'm like, why? Why do we need this? But I really love that once again, because I did see Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot is terrible. She cannot do. I mean, and like there's not a lot of range with the Queen. I mean, you could make the Queen of Snow White interesting, better, but there's not a lot of range. And I want to just for some comparison, this is nearly 1 million subscriber base movie review channel by this woman, Grace Randolph. And she basically was not sympathetic to Rachel Zegler and speaking out for Palestine. She kind of was like, oh, remember what happened to, Jane Fonda? Well, Jane Fonda was a queen. So, remember what happened to Jane Fonda speaking out against the Vietnam War? Yeah, well, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people dead, but okay. But this is her, like, very honest review also of Gal IDF Gadot.
Is the same go for Gal Gadot. Now, that, in my opinion, is a far more complex issue. And with good,
I love that she does the thing where, I'm sorry, but like I don't know who Grace is. I'm not trying to harp, but it's very funny. She's like, it's more complicated. It's always more complicated when it comes to Israelis versus when anyone speaks out for Palestine. That's clearly, we can condemn that. But Israeli is more complicated.
Gadot's own homeland under horrific attack, that creates, I think, a more sympathetic situation. But I would counter on that note that I don't think it would hurt her to show more sympathy for the civilians in Gaza. Again, especially if she wants to be in a 4-quadrant global film.
She said it wouldn't help. It would help her to have more sympathy for the civilians in Gaza if she wants to be part of a 4-quadrant film. In other words, you got the racists who are boycotting this movie because Rachel Zegler's not white enough. And you've got the people who don't like genocide, who, yes, are in the 4 quadrants, in other words, the global market, who are like, I'm not going to go see Gal Gadot, who, served in the IDF, who has orchestrated tons of propagandistic endeavors in the wake of October 7th, does not spare a thought for the civilians of Gaza. I'm not going to go see this movie. So this movie is cursed largely because of the issue of Palestine and of the issue of genocide. But this is just a non-political streamer, a YouTube creator who's talking about this, which I think is so fascinating.
Honestly, though, I think Gal Gadot did more damage to Snow White by being a truly awful actress in the film. Just awful. And also, this was, I think, another issue, doing almost all of her press by herself. Now, nobody knows for sure if it was Gadot or Zegler who wouldn't do press with the other one. Maybe it was both of them. Maybe neither one of them wanted to appear with the other one. They only appeared together at the Oscars. I think they took one photo together on the red carpet, just the two of them. Learn from Blake Lively. No matter what's going on behind the scenes, you just have to get through the press tour. Then you never have to see these people again. Maybe there's a sequel, but
hang on.
Now, does the same, wants to be
hang on,
in a 4-quadrant.
There was one part, I can't find it, I don't care enough to find it, where she's basically like, look, Gal Gadot, like, all she has is her beauty, and that's all apparently the Queen cares about, is like, who is the fairest of them all. But like, even in the cartoon, the Queen wasn't fair. She was like creepy, you know what I'm saying? She was creepy deepy. And I just want to like name, especially like people like Rachel Zegler, people of color, mixed people, they're always she's going to get it from all sides. And I think this is really interesting because this was an article that came out earlier, just like a week ago. Lastly on her, that she actually said that during the filming of West Side Story, she had to prove her Latina identity multiple times because they were like, are you sure? Are you sure you're Latina? Are you okay? So you're Colombian? So again, mixed people, which there are a lot of us, are constantly like, are you this? Are you that? Are you this enough? And so when it comes to Hollywood executives who are bloodsuckers, who are bottom line people, they don't care, and they play into the sort of like representation or like accuracy, but only to a certain extent. And of course, if it like messes with their bottom line, and now that we're in an anti-DEI, moment, they'll throw any person of color under the bus. But it is really funny that they were like, but are you actually Colombian? Like, are you brown enough? And now she's too brown. And so the whole thing is a fantastic cluster F. And And I will just, there's someone who went to go see it. Rue Rawl, hey, what's up? Says, my toddler's grandmother took her to see it. I was a little hesitant because she's 2. Oh, my toddler's 2. My toddler sat through the whole thing and loved it. Full interaction and response to the movie scenes. That's adorable. I can't believe that she sat still for that long. I hope it's like only an hour or a 90-minute film. But yeah, man, it obviously is for kids. It's chill. It's whatever. I'm sure it's good. And you know who I'm sure made it good? Rachel effing Zegler. I'm sorry. This is the last thing. You guys have to know this. The person who flew across the country to bully Rachel Zegler into deleting her tweet, by the way, is apparently married to a Jewish lobbyist who now serves on University of Pennsylvania's Board of Trustees because of the Palestinian protests on campus. So the person was Platt. We remember that. Julie Platt is an American banker and philanthropist. Since 2022, she has served as the board of trustees, the chair of the board of trustees on the Jewish Federations of North America, the second woman to serve as the chair for the organization. The agency oversees 146 Jewish federations across the United States and Canada that distribute over $3 billion a year. I mean, big if true, need to do more digging, but it would not surprise me. A lot of these elites sort of like swim in the same circles. And I don't use that euphemistically. It's not just that they're Jewish. It is part and parcel of being wealthy, being in, I'm just talking about people who are, in entertainment. I'm talking about people who are in, Ivy League schools. And sadly, folks who have, Palestine protesters in their crosshairs. And it doesn't matter if you are a young actress who's embarking on your career, who's immensely talented, who wants to speak her mind, who wants to be a whole person, who wants to speak out about the atrocities she's seeing and wants to actually use her platform for good. She is, after all, a human who deserves to be able to use her First Amendment rights. Or you are someone who's being currently swept up on the streets by ICE right now, right? Like, who's to say that? I mean, this is so dangerous also to like, I'm like, if we saw Rachel Zegler swept up for her, her speech, I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. It's just, we have to defend folks like this. We have to defend people who, even with their fame, don't shirk their responsibilities as someone with that platform, their responsibilities to the world. We should celebrate those people. We should not let, again, this fake identity politics of Hollywood that's always in reaction to the fake anti-woke policies of the right distract us from these people who are real people, who get bullied, who get trolled, who get doxxed. I don't think that it's pop culture. I think it's beyond pop culture. This has everything to do with Palestine free speech. And this has everything to do with sticking up for young people, women, and people of color in industries like Hollywood. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room.